since extending this could get rather expensive, and we know that finding new offsets are rather difficult to come by, what's the case for just letting the whole thing expire, just
Yeah.
as a fiscal matter?
Well, I'd much rather let the whole thing expire than extend the whole thing, for sure. Because extending the
How
whole
about
thing is $3.5 trillion when our debt is already headed to record levels. We're already burning 2 trillion a year. That said, letting it all expire is sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater because the TCJA did do a lot of good things, especially in the area of simplification, where barely anybody is itemizing anymore. And that's a good thing. Most people take the standard deduction. Barely anybody's paying the alternative minimum tax anymore. And that's a good thing because you shouldn't have to calculate your taxes twice. Those lower rates can help spur work and investment. This family benefit simplification helps people with children that are kind of lower income. So we ought not let it expire. We ought to actually fix it. But if the choice is between let it expire and extend it, I think it's an easy choice. The best parts of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act from a growth perspective are already permanent. That's the corporate side. The other stuff is good, has good policy and bad policy. We got to keep the good policy and get rid of the bad policy. But if push comes to shove, we should just let it all expire and then try again with some good policy later.
Well, given that Congress finds it very difficult to even pass appropriation bills, that could be possible. But another possibility is that they just do incremental reform, like extend it for a year or so, 1 year at a time. Is that, I mean, do you think that that's kind of a likely scenario?
I do. I think the likelihood, I think it's very likely they're not going to be able to get agreement to all these details. And so they do some kind of kick the can. The sort of more fiscally responsible version of the kick the can is that you extend everything for a year or two and you pay for it over 10 years. That's not what we want, but at least that would build the muscle memory that you're supposed to pay for this stuff. And if you kept doing that, you could actually land up in a decent fiscal space. The worst version of the kick the can would be you extend everything for a year or two. And in order to be able to get the support for that, you actually add more things and you make those for only a year or two so they look cheap even though they're really expensive. I think that's definitely plausible. But kick the can's not good tax policy, right? A big reason we tried to undertake tax reform was to give some certainty, was to let people be able to plan their lives. And if the tax code's changing every 2 years for no good reason, that's not a great place to land.
One other question. We're going to have to wrap up this segment in about a minute or two, but another thing that comes up next year is the debt ceiling. That comes back to life in 2025. The Treasury Department, at the beginning of 2025, the Treasury Department will start taking, their extraordinary measures that will buy some time for several months. Do you think that the raising the debt ceiling might get caught up in the negotiation over what to do with the extension of the tax cuts?
So right now there are sort of three major deadlines in 2020, and they're not tied together. It's the debt limit, sort of the beginning, the middle of the year, the end of the FRA, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, in October, and the end of this December 31st. They're too far apart to, I think, mush them together as is. But with some extensions and short kick the cans, one could see them all becoming this big blob at the end of 2025 or even at some point in 2026.
That's certainly something to look forward to. I like the big blob instead of the fiscal cliff.